take a look away from Africa and South Africa at the moment and look to Europe and the United States. How are they going to fare, or how have they done this year, and how are they going to fare next year?
Well, next year I think we're going to see even more volatility creep into global markets, and more volatility when analyzing the fortunes of the major countries, the major economic powerhouses into the world. Look, the US certainly statistically has improved its position GDP-wise over the course of the last year. The economy is looking much stronger, and the US is becoming self-sufficient in terms of oil and gas, which clearly is going to be beneficial for the economy in the medium and in the longer term as well. I mean, if you're self-sufficient in oil and gas, your input costs are reduced. You don't have to rely upon importing oil from the Middle East, and therefore you become a lot more competitive globally in terms of your manufacturing abilities. So I think the US in the medium to longer term looks relatively good. But again, for many Americans, the big issue confronting them is their spending power has stagnated. Their wages have stagnated over the course of the last few years. So statistically, economists like myself can show you all the nice graphs of a rising GDP, and we can project great things for the US economy. But the average American on the street is nervous and a little wary of the fact that he or she hasn't got the same spending power that they had 5 or 10 years ago. Their personal ability to be the consumers that Americans always have been is being eroded. And I think this is of concern to Americans, and they are going to politically also express themselves at the polls over the course of the 2016 presidential election on this particular issue. So, there's this strange dichotomy between statistical growth and great projections from economists and frustration on the ground of ordinary Americans. And the same, I might add, goes for the UK. Very good GDP figures, some of the strongest GDP quarters since before the recession in 2008, yet British voters are today considering voting for an upstart political party called UKIP. You would assume that they would thank the ruling party, at least the Conservatives, for getting them out of what has been a very miserable period of time economically, and yet these deep levels of frustration, suspicion on very local matters are creeping into British politics. So there's a volatility on the ground in both the US and the UK politically that in a sense belies some of these good economic data figures that we see coming out of those particular countries. I might add this extends to Europe. In Europe we are seeing continued stagnation and fears about a fresh recession going forward. And again, Europe's position, even that of the stars of Germany and France for that matter, both of them looking decidedly sluggish and decidedly ailing, I might add. So I think the economic prospects for Europe are indeed less than exciting, to put it mildly, and this too will create a degree of political frustration in Europe as voters look for alternative forms of political expression. Great volatility politically, I think, therefore, in these major industrialized parts of the world.